Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Perry, and today we're going to learn how to assemble your flute and hold it the right way to make a sound on the whole instrument. You should have already watched the video that Mr. Vi was teaching you how to play on just the head joint with. That's a really important step before we go to put the flute all the way together. So if you haven't watched Mr. Vi's video playing on just the head joint, please make sure you do that and then come back and check in. So always, we have to make sure that, again, your case is facing the right way before we open it. So just a reminder from that previous video, we have writing facing the ceiling. We have the latches and the handle facing you, and those latches we should pull up for that case to open the right way. So undoing the latches, and I'm holding that case all the way until I can feel it touch, so I know that my instrument isn't going to fly out. So in that last video, we were working with the head joint, and I'm using two hands to take out the head joint. That's the part that your tone hole is in for you to blow into. Whenever I'm setting up my whole instrument, I want to make sure that I'm holding it in a spot where I'm not going to smush any of the keys. Now there are no keys on this part, so I'm going to hold it right toward the bottom there. The next part though, the body of the flute, does have lots of keys. So I'm really carefully taking out this largest part of the flute, the body, and notice I'm holding it here toward the top where there are no keys that I can press on because I might squish and bend them. So I'm holding onto that flute, I'm holding onto my head joint, and I'm just really carefully putting the two together and doing little twists until they fit together. To make sure that this part is lined up right, we'll find the perfect spot for it together, but a good rule is to make sure that the part that you blow into, that embouchure hole, is lined up with the middle of the keys. So to do that, you can kind of pretend it's like a telescope and look down and run your finger along, kind of put it right in the middle of that hole, that opening, and run your finger down, and it should line up right with the middle of those keys. If it isn't in the right spot, no big deal. You can just twist it a little bit until it is in the right spot. The next part of the flute is the foot joint. And I want to again remind you that I'm always holding where there are no keys that I can smush or bend. On the foot joint, this tiny part at the bottom, we have a rod right here. The rod is connecting some of those keys to your instrument. I like to put my thumb on this little ball, and then my hand goes underneath, and that way I can get a good grip, and my thumb is touching the little ball, and it's touching on the bottom, but again, I'm not touching those keys, so I can't hurt them by accident. So I'm going to take the foot joint, and I'm going to put it on the bottom of the flute. So I take the thumb and I put the side that the thumb is on toward the bottom of my flute, and I gently push. And again, to make sure that it's lined up, we want that rod, the ball right here, lined up with the center of the keys. Sometimes people by accident might put rod to rod right here, rod to rod they might do, but that can make it a little bit tough to reach everything, so we want to twist and have it lined up with the center there. So again, we're always touching where there's nothing to smush. The tone hole or embouchure hole needs to line up with the center of the keys. And the foot joint has that little ball, and that's also going to be lined up with the center of the keys. So now your flute is all the way together, and we're ready to hold it to learn how to play. Now before you do that, make sure that you're holding where there's nothing to smush, and taking your other hand, and for right now, see if you can get a sound on the whole flute without pressing on anything. And we do it just like we did in Mr. Vi's video where you're doing on just the head joint. If you're having a hard time getting the sound on the whole instrument, go back to just the head joint. You might need to spend a little bit more time there. I'll go first and then you try. Ready? Take a nice breath in through your mouth. Ready to hold it the right way so we can play some different notes in our next video? With my left hand, I'm going to take my hand and I want it to be really nice and relaxed. So I'm going to shake and stop and just kind of let it fall so it's comfortable and loose. And then I flop it over. So it kind of looks like you could carry a tray around if you were in a restaurant with like fancy or a fancy party where they're giving you appetizers off of the tray. we need to flop it over so your flute can sit on that tray that you're making with your hand. So let's try it again. Ready? Shake, stop, and flop it over. Your flute needs to sit right on your tray. I'm calling this part of your hand your tray. That's the part it's going to rest on. Putting it right on there, and my finger, my pointer finger, is going to go on this key here. We've put stickers on your flute, or we're going to put stickers on your flute if we haven't yet, so you know exactly which key it's going to go on. My thumb is on this back key. There are a couple back there. We want just the half key right there. We don't need this double key quite yet. So again, shake, stop, flop, and then set your flute on that tray so you can press on your first key and your thumb is pressing on that back key. With your other hand, your right hand, you're just going to flop it forward and put your pinky on this little key right on the foot joint. It was really close to that ball that we had our thumbs on to assemble it. This note is actually called a B, and this is what it sounds like if I'm pressing on the first key, the thumb, and the pinky key. Can you sing that note with me? Bum, bum. On the tray, pointer finger, thumb, and pinky. Here we go. Whenever you're not playing your flute, remember it's time to put it back in the case safely. So we just take it apart and make sure that we put it back in the proper way. We have to clean that flute first before it goes away every single time. Make sure that you tune into the next video that shows you not only how to hold it, but how to play a couple of other notes that make it so you can play some really great songs. Happy practicing!